Hello, everyone. It's time to tune up the band and be loud and be proud, as it is time for another Sweet Chinwag Sweet Chin-terview. This month, we're bringing you a new series, which we are calling Being Proud, centered around exploring LGBT identities through the lens of pro wrestling, content creation, and all other manner of worlds of online media. And our first guest this week is Visage. We hope you enjoy. Visage, thank you for joining us this week.
Hi, thank you for having me.
It's absolutely amazing. And as we've said, this series of interviews is all around exploring LGBT wrestlers and LGBT identity through wrestling. And we are so happy to have you join us.
Oh, thank you for having me. Honestly, thank you.
So we'll just get straight into it. And our first question is, what does it mean to you to represent the LGBT community or the LGBT plus community in the wrestling world?
Um, I think that answer's changed as I've grown within the industry, and I think as the industry has changed as well. When I, first started 5 years ago, I think it was bigger than myself, maybe just because the representation wasn't really there 5 years ago, or as not as much as it is today at all. So
Yeah.
being an openly queer performer within the community and performing in wrestling, especially British wrestling, was a lot bigger then, I think. But now there's so many more openly queer performers that it kind of takes less pressure off.
Yeah, you don't really need to be as much of a like a standard bearer or anything like
Yeah,
that.
exactly. I mean, I'm very, very, very happy and very proud that I was able to do that. Or slash, if people looked at me in that way, or if people still look at me that way, I'm very happy to take that label.
Yeah.
As much as we all fight against them, I'm very happy to take that label of being like someone that maybe held a torch for a little while. But I am happy that that's being shared a bit more now.
Yeah. Um, and obviously for yourself, representing the non-binary community in wrestling as well. Would you say there's anything different in that for you specifically, or?
I'm not really. I don't know. Maybe on the outside. I don't know. For myself, it's more just a bubble. I've always kind of never really cared or thought about what other people have thought or like think about me. Um, so I've never thought of it as a massive deal, but I'm sure to some people having someone that identifies as they, them, or not within the typical gender norms, it is a massive deal. But sometimes I think it's easier just to kind of go with it and be yourself and not put so much pressure on you. Because I think once you put pressure on you being someone for people to look up to, that's when it can get hard,
Yeah.
and that's when you start questioning and maybe even making mistakes. So sometimes it's just easy to be like, I'm going to keep doing me. I'm going to just go for it. And if people enjoy it, or if people look at me as a role model in that kind of sense, and that's amazing, but not
Yeah.
to put too much pressure on it, because as soon as you put pressure on, you're gonna end up disappointing people.
Yeah. It's more like forgetting the label, as it
Yeah,
were,
exactly.
and just
Exactly.
being you.
Yeah, exactly.
Do you think wrestling has allowed you to explore your identity or presentation of it?
Oh, absolutely. I think wrestling has always been drawn to big characters and characters that are a little bit unusual, I suppose,
Yep.
would probably be the word that a lot of people would use back then. And I suppose like before wrestling, I was very much um not confused about my sexual identity or my gender identity. Um, but I think it was more solid in one box, where wrestling has allowed me to explore what I'm comfortable in with, like wearing and looking and experimenting in makeup, and then through that, that's opened up many doorways to question, you know, identity and gender identity. So it has definitely allowed me to work on myself, and for
Yeah.
that I'm incredibly grateful. And for the audience and also colleagues to um, be gracious enough to allow and watch that exploration happen.
Yeah. It's kind of given you an open space to not have to pay as much mind to the way you
Yeah,
present
because
yourself, and you get more opportunity to do it. Would you say differently?
I think because when I started, um myself, the person that is behind the Visage character is they were two very different people to begin with, and then Visage has kind of allowed me to experiment with things and draw the line in different ways. So the longer and longer that's gone on, which is now what I've entered my 6th year
Yeah.
within wrestling, I think that line has definitely blurred a little bit more, and the
Yeah.
two have formed into one, because each, I would live not two separate lives per se, but I would live one life Monday to Thursday as the person that I'd been since I was born,
Yeah.
and then Friday, Saturday, Sunday would be Visage. And I think that's kind of the busier you get and the more involved within wrestling you get, it kind of merges. And I think that's really brought me to a place in my life as, I don't know, as like more open to myself and
Yeah.
to more experiences.
As you've gone on and you've had more work with this, it's kind of helped you bring the two together.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What were some of your favorite things that you've done that have helped, blend those two together over those years?
Oh, I don't know. There's a few. I think Defiant was a massive one.
Yeah.
Just because of the reach that it got. I mean, it was on YouTube weekly to thousands of people to watch, and all over the world as well. So it wasn't
Yeah.
just like a small local independent show in the rural middle of England. It was global, um, which allowed me to connect with more people from across the world. Which and there's some places that watched it that their countries aren't very LGBTQIA plus friendly. So realizing my privilege to be
Yeah.
able to explore that really helped as well. So I definitely say Defiant, and then also just on a smaller local field, I'd say just wrestling in communities in England and in the UK in general, which were more small town conservative. And when I'd first come out, my first show, they would be like, what is this?
Yeah.
And then by the end of the match, or the end of a couple of weeks, when a couple of shows and I've been there, their attitude had changed, and I went from being someone that they were a bit like, well, I don't know what this is, to being someone that as soon as my music hit, they'd be cheering for and wanting to see that match. So just on a smaller level, just being able to go around to more conservative towns and
Yeah.
maybe change some opinions there.
How does it feel for you, like seeing that over the time that you're there, kind of go from being looked at wearingly to then people cheering for you?
um I don't know, I think it's not jarring. I think it's just more it's exciting in a way that you can get people to change their opinion in their mind, because eventually they're just cheering for someone's like ability to stand up and be themselves. So it's like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the word that I describe it as. It's like it's a feeling of just like acceptance to it in a certain level, I'd say, where it's more like um that you've managed to just change, even if it's just like the kids' opinion, because
Yeah.
kids are so easily led, and no one's born to be you know, homophobic, sexist, racist. They're taught that. So if you can get into a child's mind of looking at someone that isn't what they typically see,
Yeah.
and that they love, then you know they're going to grow up thinking, well, you know, forming their own opinion instead of being led astray, maybe.
Yeah, just giving them the chance to see someone different, and for those out there who haven't had the chance to explore it, to say that could be me.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's more. I think that's happening just in the world in general as well, not just wrestling now. I think
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
everywhere. I
Yeah.
mean, look at TikTok. If you like, there's so many like people that identify as males that are dressing up in like stereotypically female clothing, or vice versa. So there's not. It's happening on all kind of like social levels. So I
Yeah.
think we're on the right path with this next generation coming up.
Yeah, we're definitely in a bit of a change period, I would
Yeah,
say.
thank God.
I'm totally here for it, because I've been on record many times saying, personally, I think men's clothing needs more options, more
Oh yeah,
variety, bolder colors.
absolutely. I agree. Whilst wearing all black, but yes, I do agree.
You are
Yeah, we
saying
just
that to the person that is often seen wearing all black as well, so I know
yeah,
exactly how you feel.
but it does. It needs to be. There needs to be a bit more excitement in stereotypically male clothing. I don't know. I'm a bit bored of a t-shirt and jeans. You know, it's a hot day. Wear a
Yeah,
skirt.
I've said, right, with how they often sell men's clothing, I'm amazed rompers haven't caught on yet. It's an
Oh my God.
all-in-one t-shirt short combo.
Easy. I would absolutely love a romper. I might actually buy one after this interview.
What you said about going to conservative small town areas, have you felt a very distinct difference between like playing shows in London and doing shows outside of London? A lot of other independent wrestlers that we've spoken to before have said about that.
Yeah, I would say London's very, very accepting in general, with more unique styles, I'd say.
Yeah.
However, like I'm still, you know, I was brought up in the Midlands. I was at university in the north in Liverpool, so my heart is still very much like
Yeah.
based up north. So even though sometimes there are there are bigger reactions up north for someone coming out not looking stereotypically how they expect, um, it's more of a challenge and more, I don't know, rewarding maybe as well when you go back a couple of times and it being like, oh, sick, Visage is on the show, or you know, someone different on the show. Because
Yeah.
realistically, I think the north get a bad rep sometimes, but I mean, from living in the north for so long, everyone's so like happy and welcoming anyway. It's just sadly wrestling shows seem to run in the roughest area sometimes, and
Yeah.
you know, it's not where the most privileged people can be, who have had the experiences of going to drag shows or fashion shows, or you know, it's, but that's more rewarding I think sometimes than going to a, I mean, I love performing anywhere, but sometimes when you go to a London show you can be like, oh, this is going to be easy because they're going to love me straight away.
Yeah.
Because you can't boo a drag queen down London. That would be
Yeah, that
blasphemy.
would get quite the reaction from the rest of the
Yeah.
crowd. Yeah, no, I mean, you saying that has reminded me, my experiences up north have been pretty much positive all around in
Yeah,
most
everywhere,
cases.
like, especially, I mean, my heart's in Liverpool. That's why, like, I lived there for years with the university. So, I mean, there's nothing like Northern hospitality.
Absolutely not. So going on next, I want to ask, what are some of the more unique challenges that you have experienced or faced as a non-binary wrestler?
I just think sometimes getting in the door with companies and promotions. I think sometimes they, not everyone, I should say this. I just think sometimes promoters don't know what to do with someone that doesn't, fit the norm,
Yeah.
or they just don't expect their audience to respond or react to it, or understand someone that isn't gender conforming. So, but it's just taking that chance and knowing that when you get given that opportunity to really go for it. I mean, I think I've said it before in other interviews, like it took me ages and ages to get in with Defiant. I used to go to their shows when it was like WCPW, because I used to
Yeah.
like travel with a lot of the lads from the Nottingham area. I used to take them all the time, and I'd get to know a lot of the people backstage, but it was more just like, not the promoters not giving me a shot, but it was more like, oh well, we've already got Jack Sexsmith, and I'm like, yeah, that's amazing, but there's more to the the LGBT community and the queer community than just one representation. Like
Yeah.
you can't base your whole what's the word, you can't base your whole like equality quota on one male performer or one female performer that's queer. Maybe like that doesn't that's too
Yeah.
much pressure as well on that performer. You can't put a whole like queer community on just myself or Laura Di Matteo, or at that time it was Sexsmith. Like you can't do that, because they don't represent everyone. That's like putting the whole, like, I don't know, black community on one black performer. You can't, that's not
Yeah.
everyone looks the same, and not everyone's going to identify with one person. So I think that was also a challenge of just being like, oh well, we've already got one. It's like it's not like, not every like
Yeah.
white
Not.
cisgender male is the same. So, and you've
Yeah.
got plenty of them on the show. Like
Yeah.
it's more just getting in the door. But I mean, it taught me to, when I did get the opportunities, to go for it and not half-ass it, because you didn't know when the next opportunity was going to come about.
Do you think that understanding has changed now?
I think so, more so now. I think because I think over probably the last 2 years, I think queer performers have just decided that actually I'm going to just carry on fighting to get on, and calling out people's bullshit if they are saying, well, we've already got someone like that. That's bollocks. Like
Yeah. Oh yeah.
we'll call it out, and I think that's the one benefit over COVID. A lot of stuff got called out, and I think that was needed, and I think that's what needs to be done going forward. And with I mean, it's been postponed until next year now, but with Pride Pro Wrestling
Yep.
coming, supposed to be this month in London. That was the first LGBTQ wrestling company in the UK. So I think we've kind of taken the ball for ourselves and shown really, like, there are enough queer performers out there to put on a whole bloody show, let alone
Yeah.
have one match.
Yeah. No, definitely. As something that we've seen, lots of people have seen over social media, especially with Pride Pro coming around.
Yeah,
Um, Obviously, it's that there are the fans there, and obviously the demand is there. I would
yeah,
never have questioned that in the first place.
no,
But fans have become more vocal about the nature of shows, making
hmm
sure shows are actually representative of people and different communities.
exactly. And I think that's, I think sometimes wrestling fans get a bad rep by wrestlers and vice versa. And sometimes they should, and sometimes people need to get called out on their BS. But I think it's a double-edged sword, because without wrestling fans, there are no wrestlers, and there's no wrestling shows. And without wrestling shows and wrestlers, there are no wrestling fans. So we have to really trust each other, and really work together to make a better community and a better performance space, really.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I know obviously so much of the last year has come from fans wanting wrestling to be safer for them, but also for the people working the shows.
Yeah, exactly. And I never understand why like some wrestlers would get mad about that, because at the end of the day, like, yes, it might take longer for wrestling to come back, but at the end of the day, when you do get back, you're not gonna ever have those worries of, you know, getting hurt at a show and not having someone to be there, or having to deal with like creeps or something that's gonna like offend you or upset you, because you've already dealt with that. Now it's gonna, you know, you've got to burn something down to build it back up again. You can't just work with a crappy interior, you know.
Yeah, I think people are done ignoring things, and it's
Exactly.
very much a call for action now.
Yeah,
Do you think wrestling is becoming its own kind of niche queer space or queer friendly space?
I think more so. I think wrestling was always kind of queer,
Yeah,
and it always had those elements of queer culture. I think, but in the whole scheme of, when you look at the whole world, really, a lot of things stem from queer culture. A lot of like things stem from like the ballroom scene, and you know, and when you look at popularities of shows like Drag Race and Pose and Legendary, they're opening up, you know, more cisgender communities to watch them and understand them, and steal from them. And although maybe it's turned it into more of like a, not a side act or a sideshow, or it's brought more eyes on a queer community, and I think that
yeah,
has helped. Um, but then you, as a queer performer, you have to understand sometimes of it being like, it may be taken not as a liberty, but more so that people are seeking you out because they want to live in some kind of fantasy of like drag queens, and you know, kind of seeing it as like a, as a sideshow kind of, you know what I mean,
yeah.
like,
I I've always had it told to me it's like people almost like fantasizing it.
yeah, you need to, you've got to remember that you can't be swept up in this like this ride of cisgender people seeking you out, because you've got to remember that, you know, you are a person at the end of the day, and you're not just some kind of like show that, or you know, something that they can throw money at. You're not just a
Yeah, like
performance.
you're not just an accessory for the sake
Yeah,
of being there. You're
yeah.
there to make a
And I mean,
statement.
some people love that. Some people love to be, you know, seen and treated as that. But I think that's where it can tip between being respected as a performer and respected as a individual, and or just seen as like a something that they can make money off.
Yeah, and I am so with you, and the rest of my team are so with you when you said wrestling has always been a little bit queer.
Always, it's half naked men wrestling, like rolling around with each other. That is, it's very queer.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And you know, I say as a fan that's often watching stuff in the US, and I've seen, you know, over the last 3 years or so, like the growth of things like Effie's Big Gay Brunch and the growth of Effie as well.
I know, massive, absolutely insane. But the same with like Sunny, and there's a new, I think his name's Dylan on AEW as well now. Um,
Yes.
yeah, I can't remember his last name. But even in like WWE as well, you know, Jake Atlas, Tegan
Yep.
Knox, Sonya Deville. Um, there's there's plenty more representation now, and I think that's also helped as well. Like the bigger companies are putting a representation out on queer performers.
Yeah.
So that helps as well.
Yeah. The one thing that we've kind of seen and said ourselves is that the perception has, we think, changed in that before, you know, being gay was a character, whereas
Oh
now
yeah,
it's just a part of someone that isn't even
yeah.
questioned.
There's no more Billy and Chuck
Yeah.
happening.
Yeah.
It's
People are
not.
keeping away from that now for many,
Yeah,
many
it's
good
not.
reasons.
Yeah, it's none of that anymore. It's more like, you know, Sonya Deville's a lesbian. Sick,
Yeah.
great, cool. She's also a cage fighter, so that's,
Yeah. She also has
you know,
amazing fashion sense.
yeah, she's a boss. She looks sick, So yeah, there's more. It's not the main focus of someone's personality.
Yeah.
You know, so which is great.
And then just as a little final statement, if you will, what would your message be for any people listening who feel they might otherwise be excluded from wrestling for who they are?
You just have to bite the bullet, sadly. I put off getting into wrestling for so long because I didn't think I would be accepted. Just as, back then when I, 5 years ago when I did start, and even longer when I thought about starting, I thought I was a completely different identity to what I am now. So, as a gay man at the time, I thought, I don't think I'll be accepted. But you do just have to take a chance and and if one place isn't accepting of you, which they might not be, you can't go in there with the full sense that you're going to be accepted everywhere. Like, if there's one place that isn't accepting, then you don't give up on that dream and passion. If that is genuinely what you want to do, you just have to go find somewhere else. And once you get there and you fall in love with it and you really work hard, that's when you can make changes. I mean, there's been places I've worked, the majority of the places that I've worked and the majority of people I've worked with have been nothing more than accepting. But I worked at one place once. There was a remark made by a promoter and I've never worked there again because I had that position at that time where I can make my own decision. Like, you should never feel forced to do anything. So you just kind of have to trust yourself and take that leap. Don't put it off, because if you put it off, then you are cementing those negative thoughts and impact that other people have on you. You know what I mean? Like, you just have to go for it and do it.
Yeah.
Because by that way, that's how you make change for yourself and other people as well.
Absolutely. Be the change that you want to see.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, it's been amazing having you join us and talking with you. Just quickly for the end now, where can people find you?
So you can find me on all social media platforms as Visage Wrestler. So VISAGE Wrestler. Check me out. I'm mostly on Instagram and Twitter. So Instagram, you'll get to see my face painted for the gods. And then Twitter, you can find me talking all kinds of rubbish.
It's no different to what we do.
Yeah, it's wrestling, drag, politics, all sorts.
Something for everyone.
Exactly.
Thank you so much. And we hope to have you back sometime soon.
Yeah, please. That would be amazing. Thank you so much for this.